Now it's time to get some push rods on order. You can't use off-the-shelf push rods because there's just too many variances here. This is a solid cam, and those have one lifter height, and then the hydraulic cam has a taller lifter, and the roller cam has a taller lifter, and of course you're using aftermarket head gaskets. These are 051 instead of stock, which is 020, I believe. Then you're using aftermarket heads, aftermarket rocker arms, rocker stands. You don't know where you're at. You have to order new push rods, custom made to your length. So the first thing you do is get a couple of lifters, spray some WD-40 on them, spray some WD-40 in the lifter hole so they'll slide easily, and we'll find the base circle of the cam where we take our measurements from. We're just looking for no movement in these lifters. We're coming off the intake here. It's at the bottom, nothing's moving. Now we're coming up on the exhaust, so we back up a little bit, and right there we know we're on the base circle because nothing's moving. So that's our first step. The next thing we do is Mopar says we want one thread sticking out the bottom of the rocker arm. They don't want it sticking way out here. That's bad. And if you run it down too low, the pushrod cup can hit here and break your pushrod cup. And when you tear engines down, you will see broken pushrod cups of people who were running them too tight this direction. So that's a no-no. So you set this at one thread showing. Just tighten up that little thing with your fingers. Then you take your push rod checkers. The long one, of course, is the exhaust. And then you back this off. I leave that nut tight, and then back this nut off, or back this off really. And you can leave about 20 thousandths here, whatever, to what your valve lash is going to be. We don't really have to worry about thousandths here. We're just trying to get push rods. And we've got a little click. Tighten up your little jam nut so when you take it out. And normally you do this with checking springs, but since I have to take this head off anyway, you don't have to do that. Just tighten it up, and then when you take these rockers off, you can take the checking out then. We've got a little clatter there. This one's not as easy to back out, but you can do it. I have faith in you. A little too much. I got a little clatter there. We got a little movement. Tighten up your lock nut. Now while you have this like that, you need to look down in here and double check your, on a previous mock-up you kind of looked at all this, but you want to make sure that everything still looks good. this exhaust is running real close to the bottom like it always does. And when I saw it, you got miles on the top, and you get a little flashlight here, shine underneath here, and make sure that you have some room on the bottom. And now you can, when you've got the check-in springs in there, you also turn the motor over and watch this and make sure it's not working against you. But when I was looking at these push rods, I had flashbacks, and I'll show you a little mistake I made, and we'll go over that. So when I was looking for clearance on those push rods, and I saw that they were riding low in the exhaust hole, which is normal and everything's fine, but I had flashbacks to push rods that I've seen that had a mark on them where they were rubbing the head gasket, and I realized that I had not mocked up this head gasket. Yes, I called myself mocking everything up, but guess what? I never tried this head gasket. So these are Fel-Pro 1104s, and when I put the head gasket on there, you know what happens. There's a bad, look how bad that must be 60 thousandths sticking up there. Well, with that push rod riding so low in the hole, that's not going to work. So I should have mocked this up. You take a little Dremel tool with the little sand roll on the end of it, and you just touch that up till it meets the block. But now I have to take this off and do it by hand. It's just easier if you do it on the block, you know, but we can't do that now because we're putting the thing together. So that was a mistake on my part, which just goes to tell you that don't trust anybody to make anything. You have to check everything yourself. I know I keep saying that, but you really do. You're going to have to hone the balancer out. You're going to have to radius this right there till it comes down to the, it's terrible. Of course, I couldn't help but go get Ma Mopar's head gasket, and I bet you know what the outcome's going to be on that. What do you know? See that block right there? There is no lip. Yes, you want Mopar's parts, but you can't get those. Now we have to get our information together to give the push rod guy so he can make the push rods. When I talk about push rod length, I'm always talking about net length, because if you look in the push rod catalog, there's 27 different top cups, and I don't know if they're all the same depth and everything, so I can't really measure overall length. I always talk net length from the bottom of the cup to the bottom of the push rod. In your application, you will be using, you'll have to tell him, your cup and a ball, and you'll be using 5/16 ball, 5/16 cup. There is push rods, I guess some roller lifters in the old days were 3/8 ball on the bottom, because this is pro stock stuff from the 70s. That's D&D, and I think this is a D5 Chrysler Hemi, and it's 3/8 ball on the bottom too. So that's why you have to specify 5/16 on the bottom, 5/16 on the top. You'll probably want 80 thousandths wall and straight 3/8, even though 7/16 to 3/8 tapered is sexier looking. But if you're just building a more or less street motor like this one, 3/8 straight with 80 thousandths wall is good enough. I think Mopar in the Mopar Performance catalog, I think they were measuring overall length. But they can do that because all their cups were probably the same. But I believe those were overall. So you'll have to tell him that you want 5/16, 5/16 cup, ball. Now we need a measurement for them. So to get an accurate measurement to the bottom of the cup, I use a 1/4-inch ball, put it in like that, and then I can measure and subtract the 250 and give him a net length. And you have to tell him several times, this is the net length I want, not the overall length. So we'll put that in there and come up with a number to give them. For pushrod length. I normally do this in my lap. It's a little easier than struggling here. Okay, so that is that minus 250 for the ball is our net length. So you'll want to tell them your net length, cup and ball, 5/16, 5/16. If you need some adjusters, these work good with stock rocker arms or stage 5s, and they're 1.25 long. If you don't specify 1.25 long, and there's times I haven't, and they send you these ones that are that long, and guess what? You guessed it, they will hit your valve cover, and you'll be unhappy. So get that information together. Smith Brothers, Manton, Trend, several people make push rods, and get your stuff on order. I thought we were done with this head gasket, but it turns out I'm wrong again. That water passage right there, it's on the Street Hemi block, it's on the Mega block, it's on this Callie's block. It's not on the Keith Black for whatever reasons. But it's not on this gasket either. So I guess I hate to re-engineer somebody else's product, but I got to have the whole. That punch set I bought the other day only goes down to 1/4 inch, so I'll have to order one on Amazon or try to make my own. But I got to have the whole. I'll just use the stock head gasket as a template, lay it on there, mark it, punch it. Now it's time to torque the main cap bolts. It's a little different depending on what type of fasteners you're using and which block you're using. The stock Street Hemi used regular bolts with engine oil for lube, and you want to put a little here so you're not trying to turn that against dry surface, that affect your torque. And the later model blocks used ARP bolts, and that's a little different. They want ARP lube. This particular one is ARP studs, so they torque to 110 instead of 100 like the stock Street Hemi. I don't know of a Mopar published sequence of how to torque that. you can do whatever you want. I just start in the middle and work your way out. It doesn't matter, I don't think. The main thing is, you want your fasteners clean, and then you got to put some ARP lube on here. I I know ARP thinks that's a great brush, but in reality, they obviously have never put together an engine if they had to try to use that thing. Uh, you can go to Walmart and for a couple bucks, they'll sell you these little artist brushes, and you can brush this stuff on your studs and on the top of the washer. They want the bottom clean, I think, because so it doesn't try to spin where it spins here on the washer instead of down there. But that's about all that is. You want to do it in 3 even steps. Like on this, you would probably want to do torque it to 50, torque it to 80, torque it to 110. And of course the reason is if you try to randomly tighten this up and then decide to go to the 110, you might have got that to 100 already. Well, now the breakaway torque, if it was torqued to 100, the breakaway liable to be 110, and so your torque wrench is going to click before you even turn it. Well, you haven't got it at 110. You have to have a smooth pull till it clicks or beeps or whatever your torque wrench does. But you can't get close to your number and then try to torque it to spec. So if you take it to 80, that'll give you a nice room to get a pull on it until you get the click.